Hi, and thank you for joining us here at Tax Talk UK, where we talk about all things tax and consider other important aspects of working for yourself, being self-employed, running a small business. So today I'm going to talk about when you need to register for VAT. Before I do, if I could please ask you to take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll easily be able to refer back to this information if you should need to, as well as easily being able to have access to the other information that we have on a whole host of different topics, all aimed at supporting you in your self-employment. So back then to when to register for VAT. So HMRC has a VAT threshold, and this is the amount that your turnover, if your turnover reaches that threshold, then you are required to register for VAT. Now, you can voluntarily register under certain conditions if you are underneath the VAT threshold. But today we're mostly concerned with when you have to register. So when we talk about turnover, we're talking about all of the income that your business receives. So that is for your sales, for your services, but also for your recharge for materials. So literally the total of your invoice value. The other important thing that you should remember is that whether you have reached the threshold for turnover to meet the threshold for which you must register for VAT is based on a calculation for a rolling 12-month period. So that means that you must, particularly if you're close to the VAT threshold, you must keep a really close eye on this. Now, if you are using Making Tax digital software, there will be reports in there that will quite easily be enable you to look at what your turnover has been for the last 12 months. So we're not talking about the financial period that your business is reporting for. We are looking at literally the last 12 months. What was your turnover for that period? And if you look at those 12 months, then and you are over the threshold, then that's the point that you do need to register. Just one point to mention here is that if, for example, generally you trade below the VAT threshold, but some sort of exceptional circumstance meant that you temporarily breached the threshold, but that was literally a one-off, and you don't expect to carry on trading at that level, then you can contact HMRC to ask for an exemption to registration. So this might be, for example, if you as a one-off, you have to perhaps have high charges of cost of sales that you're recharging to your client or customer as a one-off, and that's not normally how you would trade. You will need to give, if you are wanting to do this, you will need to firstly give HMRC clear evidence that justifies that this is an exceptional circumstance and you have temporarily gone over, but you don't expect to carry on. And then, of course, once you get to the end of the periods, or the 2 periods that it overlaps, of course your trading accounts will need to reflect the fact that this was an exceptional amount. It could cause you a lot of problems if you rely on an exemption and it's not completely correct. So I'm going back then to when you must register. So this can cause a little bit of confusion, but it is quite straightforward. It's quite straightforward when you are monitoring on a regular basis. What is incredibly problematic is that if you don't notice that you go over the VAT threshold, which can be costly in terms of having to stand VAT perhaps that you can't recover, as well as potential penalties from HMRC. So as I mentioned, and I can't stress enough, it's really important that you always have an eye on your turnover for the last 12 months in relation to the VAT threshold. So if you realise that you're going over the VAT threshold, the month that happens, you have 30 days from the end of that month to do your registration, and your effective date of VAT registration would be from the first day of the second month. So currently we're in October. So if currently you breach the VAT threshold during this month, then you have until the end of November to submit your VAT registration, and you can request to be registered from the 1st of December. So you can see that in this scenario, even if you were quite late in the month when you realised, yes, this is the month that my turnover has been increasing each month, and I've been keeping an eye, and I've been having a rolling 12-month, and I can see that during this month I am going to be over the threshold for the past 12 months. Even if that happens quite towards the end of the month, you can see you still have a full clear month to get yourself organised, to wait for your VAT registration number to come through, to perhaps if you've issued quotes to clients or customers or anything like that, it gives you plenty of time to go back and to revise the quotation, and to let people know that you will be VAT registered from that from that future date. So therefore, of course, that is the most efficient way to operate. If you find out at a later date, perhaps you don't monitor your rolling turnover throughout the year, and perhaps you have a 31st of March year end, and that is being completed in June time, and at that point it comes to light that you breached the threshold in October of the previous year, then in that scenario you will need to register for VAT from the date that you breach the threshold, and you will need to account for that VAT retrospectively from that date. Potentially you will incur penalties for late registration, certainly for interest on the VAT that is due. You may find that some of your customers or clients are happy to pay you the VAT on a revised VAT invoice on the basis that they can reclaim it, but you will find that even potentially some of your customers or clients who are VAT registered and would be able to reclaim the VAT will say that they don't want to pay this, they don't want the administrative burden. So you potentially you could have to stand the VAT that would have been due on those sales from the date you went over until the date that you register. And aside from that, then you don't have any planning time. You realise that you've gone over, and from that point you still then have the issue of it not being that good customer service to say to a customer, I gave you a quotation, and actually I gave you that 3 days ago, but now I'm going to have to charge VAT. It just doesn't give a good impression. So of course, hopefully this explains why it's good to keep a track and the importance of keeping a real close eye on your turnover, to know that if it's genuinely as a temporary breach of the threshold and you can demonstrate that clearly to HMRC, you can request an exemption. However, if you notice that you are breaching the VAT threshold, that your rolling 12-month turnover has gone over the VAT threshold for the current year set by HMRC, that you have 30 days from the end of the month. So in effect, the way to think of it is that you have a clear month in between when you apply for the VAT and from the date that you are going to have your effective date of registration is the date that you become registered from, so the date that you have to charge VAT, and it's acceptable in that month in between that you breach the threshold and that you're trading over the threshold. But it is okay because you've already applied for the registration within the timescales. So as I mentioned earlier, it's just if you don't notice that, then that can be very costly. It can be costly in terms of VAT and penalties, and it doesn't really give a very good impression, and it's just not an efficient way to operate when you're having to all of a sudden drop everything to sort out your VAT registration, to contact customers that you haven't yet carried out works for. So as I say, hopefully you can keep an ongoing track and do some forward planning. I will, in the description, I will pop the link to the gov.uk information, just so that you can see that all in black and white. So hopefully this has helped, and thank you very much for watching. As I mentioned earlier, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel, and please do like the videos if you find the information useful. This helps us to gauge which topics are most helpful, so when we are a little overwhelmed with all the questions, we can know which topics are going to help the most people. Thank you very much. Goodbye.